Well, it was something I was thinking as you were talking about the ideas of, that we create our own reality and this sort of thing. From my own experience, it's that I think I might have even brought this up the last time that we met in London, which is that my experience is that sometimes reality, it kind of, if you take the step towards a worldview, you take a step into that worldview, reality will often will meet you kind of halfway. So, this whole thing, there's a really sort of coarse new age way of putting it, which is like you create everything that happens in your life. Obviously, we
don't do that. No.
But at the same time, and there's a book called The Long Descent by a writer called John Michael Greer, in which he talks about the idea of the law of attraction and this sort of thing. Is that the origin of these sorts of ideas came out of a very old esoteric tradition, which is that if you live as though you are creating everything that you experience, then the cognitive dissonance of that can open up a whole field of possibilities. So it's not quite that literally, this kind of sort of Abraham Hicks kind of thing.
Yeah.
Very sort of it can be a little bit simplistic, I think. But then there is something there, and everything that you're talking about is this sort of the reality is kind of you're taking a step. You read an article, and you go, "Oh, that's interesting. I'll follow up on that. I don't know why." And then reality kind of goes, here you go, and sort of throws little breadcrumbs on.
Yeah. We're using the term at the moment, myself and my associates, it's the labyrinth.
Yeah.
We're working our way through a labyrinth, and it's labyrinthine. Now, you will love this. I want to take the opportunity to do this now because the first time I've ever done it on an interview, particularly because it's you. But I want to take the section from your great-grandfather's book, Man and Time, because I want to show something, because this is extraordinary. Okay, my battered copy of Man and Time, which is clearly it's back to front, so you won't probably be able to read it. But anyway, this is simply the most extraordinary thing that has ever happened in my life. And it is to do with something that occurred way back in 2000. And if you just page 91, and if you've never seen this before, this is extraordinary. Okay, so these pages here. Okay, now I'll explain how strange this is. Way back in 2000, I needed to get hold of a copy of Man and Time, but I didn't have one. I was living in Horsham at the time. So I went down to Horsham Library, and they said, we don't have a copy, and there's no copies of these books anywhere in West Sussex. You're going to have to order a copy from the British Library of Boston Spa, but we'll fill in a form for you. You can fill it in, and you can deal with it. So I said, yeah, okay, fine. And this is all to do, again, with me being guided to write it, lad. This is a crucial point of this. So they send them stuff off, and 2 or 3 weeks go by. And then one day I get a phone call, and they say, your copy of Man and Time has now turned up. Would you want to come and pick it up? I couldn't pick it up that day. I went the following Saturday, and I pick the book up, and I bring it back home, and I left the book in my study 2 or 3 days. And then one evening, I'm going to bed, and I just see it in the library, and I think, I'll pick that up, and I'll have a look at it. Now, I pick it up, and as you can see, there are 318 pages in this. I flick through it, and this page 91, opens almost at random. And I start to read it. And this is what your great-grandfather wrote, okay? He's trying to explain how time is relative. So if you see a star, it's as it used to be. And he said, this second form of the basic idea is the easier to understand. For if a ray of light takes time to reach our eyes, it will take no longer to reach them than it'll take longer to reach them the farther we are away from it. So two people are a large distance apart could justifiably disagree about the date of an event. This is clearly illustrated by a figure and an explanation based on it by James A. Coleman in his Relativity for the Layman. Okay, so your great-grandfather chooses a book that was written, this book, it was written in 1964. The Relativity for the Layman by Coleman, I think, was written in 1957. So he could have picked any books on relativity. He chose that one. Okay, that's the first thing. He then quotes Coleman, and Coleman says, this figure shows the Earth, the star Betelgeuse in the constellation Orion the Hunter, and Aldebaran in Taurus, the bull. Betelgeuse and Aldebaran are 352 light years apart, respectively, from the Earth. Also, Aldebaran is about 200 light years from Betelgeuse, or Betelgeuse. Now, suppose there is a blowout on Orion on the night of March the 17th, 2000, caused by Betelgeuse or Betelgeuse exploding. This date and all the dates mentioned here refer to our method of keeping track on time on Earth. And he then goes back and he reiterates the March the 17th, 2000. I'm sitting in bed and I turned around to my wife and I said, what year is it? And she said, it's 2000. And I said, what month is it? And she goes, Penny, she goes, you know what month it is? It's March. And I said, yeah. What day is it? She said, it's the 17th. I said, what time of day is it? She said, it's the evening. And I said, so here I am reading a book published in 1964 that I could have picked up on random at any day in the last 2 weeks. The library could have delayed it. They could have phoned me on a different day. I could have gone in on a different day. It then was sitting downstairs for a week. I picked it up today. This evening, I pick it up. I take it upstairs. Of the 300 and odd pages of the book, I open it at that page to read the date and the time that I am now from a book written in 1957. And my brain just went to jelly. At that point, anybody who turns around to me and says, that is coincidence, that was not coincidence. That then led me to being fascinated by JB Priestley. And you all know the background to that was how we met. Or well, we didn't, we met and then found out subsequently about your relationship with the great man. Subsequent to then, I've written a book on JB Priestley. I've referenced his work regularly, and I've now a member of the JB Priestley Society. All because of that. But the elements of that book then introduced me to so many other areas and so many other ideas, which then seeded much of my future work. That is how strange. And that was my daemon. That was my higher self, the person that left the footprints in the snow, was the person that made me look at that page to go, ha ha, this is what I can do because I know that you've lived this life before and I deliberately got you to that point just to give you a clue that I exist. I'm leaving you footprints in the snow.